I've got something for you to chew on over the Easter weekend in honor of spring football. We're going to look at the most pivotal, critical football games on each team's schedule this year. And what I have picked for Ohio State and Michigan will surprise you, by the way. Plus, the Illinois Fighting Illini are elite in basketball. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. Coming up on 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer. I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at nissanusa.com. All right, a little something different here with all the basketball going on. Going to dive into the football schedules and the pivotal weekend each weekend for every team. Plus, we will talk about Illinois basketball. They're in the Elite Eight. Purdue going for it tonight. Women's basketball, it's all right here on Locked On Big Ten. But with spring football in full swing, Big Ten teams are already focusing on their season openers in late August. And we decided to spend our Easter weekend here looking at those schedules coming up and the most pivotal games each week where you can make or break your entire season. And we're going to look into that. This is going to be fun, I think. A good little exercise here at the end of March. In honor of Illinois making this the Elite Eight in basketball, let's start with the Illinois football team, as a matter of fact. And it seems like Brett Bielema, he couldn't get a streak going last year. See, I seem to recall him winning a game, losing a game, winning a game, losing a game. And they all seem to go down to the wire, win or lose, right? They got a stretch in November with Minnesota and Michigan State and Northwestern, where maybe if things are not going well, they can get on a little mini roll there at the end of the season. So I'm going to bracket those games together. Maybe they can get a late streak going at the end of the season and become bowl eligible. Northwestern just had their best season in decades. David Braun was thrust into the spotlight as an interim head coach following the hazing scandal, and he delivered. He absolutely delivered with the pressure on. He was the Big Ten Coach of the Year. They take on Duke September 7th, week 2. That could be a barometer for the rest of the season to let us know if Northwestern's going to, did they really overachieve last year, or can they keep this momentum going in 2024? Don't forget, former Penn State defensive coordinator Manny Diaz is now the head coach over there at Duke when they take on Northwestern. Nebraska hasn't been to a bowl game since 2016, and Matt Rule heads into year 2 at Lincoln. And I actually think they're one of the most intriguing teams in the Big Ten this year. Look, they could have earned bowl eligibility. That's a big thing for them. They haven't been able to do it, and they look like they were on their way, and then they just lost every game in November. I mean, all their momentum just crashed and burned. Of course, they were never really settled on their quarterback situation all season long. Now, Dylan Raiola, the 5-star freshman coming in, I'm as interested as you are to see if this kid is going to start right away or ease into it. How good can he be early? It's all right there. I'm just very curious. They have a game week 2 against Coach Prime, Colorado, coming to Lincoln. And both of the teams are teams that started off well early on, kind of crashed momentum, and really want to have a big year this year. So those two going at it week 2 could depend on how each of their seasons go in that one. Another brutal season awaits Luke Fickell and the Wisconsin Badgers. Year 2 of his program. You got Alabama and Southern Cal in September. Yikes. Perhaps grabbing some wins later in the year will help them get into a bowl. That means the Heartland Trophy game against Iowa is going to be critical. That's in early November. But the Badgers have lost 3 of 4 to Kirk Ferentz. So I don't know. Maybe another transitional year for Wisconsin as they try to get Fickell's program up and running over there. Ryan Walters heads into year 2 for the Boilermakers. And, of course, he came to West Lafayette after being the defensive coordinator for Brett Bielema at Illinois. And the Boilers will play the Fighting Illini in Champaign in mid-October. So homecoming there for Ryan Walters, and I think a very pivotal point for the Boilermakers schedule. Happy homecoming there for him. But they got a tough September. Includes a date with Notre Dame. October is no picnic. They've got Wisconsin and Oregon on the schedule. And November for the Boilermakers includes Ohio State and Penn State. However, no matter what happens, no matter how good, how bad, they can always salvage their season with a win against the Hoosiers in that last game in November. It's going to be a tough sled for them, though. Rutgers coming off a bowl season. Greg Schiano getting that program stabilized, wants to take it to the next level, keep moving forward at Piscataway. And if you want to get everybody's attention at Rutgers, there's a way to do it. Beat the Washington Huskies on your schedule. That's at the end of September. The Huskies, it'll be their first official Big Ten road game as a member of the conference. They're going to fly all the way across the country, fresh off their national championship game appearance against Michigan. But they're in a complete rebuild mode. And maybe the Scarlet Knights can pull this one off. And if they do, that is going to open up some eyes. That would be a good quality win for them if they can do it. Pivotal point of their season. The first half of the schedule for PJ Fleck and Minnesota. It's awful. They're all, you know what, with the Big Ten the way it is, all the schedules are awful. And if you survive these, you're going to be pretty good. But they got dates against Iowa and both of the Southern California schools. Michigan early on, that could be a really rough start for them. Maybe a late October game against Maryland, they could rebound. Maybe. And now kind of seems like a must win if they want to eke out the 6 wins and get to a bowl game for the 7th time under PJ Fleck. Welcome to the Big Ten, UCLA. Let's talk about them for a moment. They have a 3-game back-to-back stretch in their schedule against ranked teams, LSU, Oregon, Penn State. No wonder Chip Kelly left to go be the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. He didn't want to coach UCLA against that gauntlet. That's brutal. If the Bruins, they don't get a win against the Gophers in mid-October, and they got dates against Rutgers and Nebraska. If they don't get that, look out. It could get ugly in Westwood. Welcome to the Big Ten, right? Speaking as an Indiana alum, I'm curious as anybody to see how quickly or if Curt Cignetti could turn things around at Bloomington. You know, he's never lost a game in September when he was with James Madison. Now, I don't know if that's because of fortunate scheduling or maybe they was ready to go early on. Bowl eligibility may come down to season finale against the Boilermakers in Purdue. That's always a big game for them. Let's talk about Iowa. We love talking about Iowa. We do. They got a new offensive coordinator in Tim Lester. He replaced Kirk Ferentz's son, Brian Ferentz. You Hawkeye fans are all too familiar with this. Despite an underperforming offense, they still won 10 games, got to the Big Ten championship game last year. Quarterback Cade McNamara should be ready for the season following a knee injury. He's not going to do much here in the spring, but he should be cleared to go full speed once June comes. So it's coming along. Their annual cross rivalry game in week 2 versus Iowa State may show us early on if the Hawkeyes offense is any better, any different, anything, and could tell us what could happen here in the future. The Washington Huskies, as we just talked about them just a moment ago, they're going to make their debut in the Big Ten as the defending national champion runner-ups. They lost their coach to Alabama. They lost almost every starter on the team that needs to be replaced from last year. Still, there can be no doubt there is no bigger game on their schedule than the championship rematch against Michigan, October 5th. Mark that one down. It's already circled on my calendar. We're ready to go for that one. It should also be noted that the Wolverines also have a new coach and a lot of new roster players as well. So this is a game we're all going to be watching very, very closely. Let's talk about Mike Locksley and the Maryland Terps for a minute. They started last season 5-0, and you know what? Looking at their schedule, they could start out 5-0 again. They could. They get a newly revamped Michigan State team in that first month in week 2. They close out week 5 with the Indiana Hoosiers. Certainly they could win those games. Locksley, his team will be a bit revamped as well. He'll be without the Big Ten's all-time leading passer in Talia Tagovailoa. Gone. So changes in Maryland as well. But the schedule favorable early on. Remember, they started out 5-0 last year, and then they tanked, and it was really tough. Congrats, by the way, to Michigan State football coach Jonathan Smith for getting that Spartans job. And oh, by the way, now you get a 4-week stretch against Ohio State, at Oregon, Iowa, and at Michigan. Yikes. Again, welcome to the Big Ten. That's how we roll. Good luck. But those 4 games will largely determine the Spartans' record at the end of the year. I think the Oregon Ducks, they can make a run at the Big Ten title right out of the box in their first year in the league. I also think, with that being the case, they're also in the mix for a national championship. There are only 2 games that really matter that will help us gauge how really good Oregon can be. And they host the Buckeyes in mid-October, and they play at the Big House in early November. We're going to know. Are they Big Ten worthy? Right away. Well, not right away. It's in the middle of the season, but those games are going to show us exactly what is going on. Southern Cal is actually going to try and play defense this year in the Big Ten, and they always have the offense, but they face Brian Kelly and LSU early on. But my real gauge will be an early season game that they have versus the Michigan Wolverines in September. Let's talk about Penn State for a minute. Penn State seems to be stuck in this 10-2 mode. I say stuck. Everybody would love to be 10-2. It's great, but not good enough to win the Big Ten these past couple of years because those 2 losses always come to Michigan and Ohio State. Got some good news. Penn State fans, you're probably already aware of this. First of all, 10-2 may not be good enough to win the Big Ten, but it is good enough to get you in the newly expanded 12-team playoff. And they don't have to play Michigan this year. How about that? So that means it all comes down to the Ohio State game being the most pivotal game of the season. That is in November, and that is at home. All right. When we come back, we're going to tell you the most pivotal games on the schedule for Michigan and Ohio State, and it's not versus each other. Certainly it's important, but we're going to take a bit of a different angle on that one to see where they're at. And we're going to get into some Illinois basketball. I know you Fighting Illini fans want to talk about that. Purdue as well. Women's basketball, Indiana and Iowa all in action this weekend. Very important games. And we'll close it out with our picks as well. So all that is coming up. Be sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Big Ten wherever you get your podcast. That way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And we really appreciate it if you'd subscribe. That would be fantastic. All right, so we'll take a look at those big boys in the Big Ten with their football schedules and some hoops in 1 minute on Locked On Big Ten. This episode is brought to you by the spring cleaning champions, Manscaped. Manscaped's spring cleaning includes the entire body from head to toe with Manscaped's Lawnmower 5.0. Join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with their special offer. You can go to manscaped.com and use the code LOCKEDON for 20% off and free shipping. They got a 5th generation trimmer, features 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads, a standard one for taking a little off the top, a new foil blade to go smooth all over the body. And if you hate making a mess, it's waterproof. You can do it in the shower. Got a nice little compact case. Take it wherever you go. So whether you're looking to craft a signature new look or clean up the neckline a little bit, all these things are handled by Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code LOCKEDON at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code LOCKEDON at manscaped.com. Nothing like a little bit of spring cleaning. And Better Together. Have you heard about this? Better Together offers a familiar experience for existing DFS players and daily fantasy players. You got a little social twist to this. You can play with a friend or a teammate. Somebody take the pressure off of you, right? A little synergy. If you're tired of the same old daily fantasy grind, you make you make your roster and you just hope for the best. Consult with somebody. Do it as a team with your against your other friends, if you will, and have a little rivalry, a little competition. So you and your friend, you can pick more or less on real-time player stats and strategize with your partner to boost your odds and climb the leaderboard together, and then make fun of your other friends that you're beating. It's just send your friend an invite, create a team, and watch yourselves rise in the standings against other friends for bragging rights. Download Better Together now. And it's from the App Store, of course, and you can sign up using the promo code LOCKEDON for a free $5 entry into any NCAA basketball contest. Remember the code LOCKEDON, because winning alone is fun, but it's better together. Check out Better Together today. All right, we left you off with a couple important teams when we were doing our opening segment, looking at pivotal football games on everybody's schedule. I want to thank everybody for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day, especially you everydayers out there. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. We would really appreciate it. And don't forget our website, talkbig10.com. All right, let's continue this, and we'll talk a little basketball in just a second. So I left you off with Michigan and Ohio State in the most pivotal games of the season. And typically it is against each other at the end of the year. And I don't want to belittle that. That still is true to a large extent. Let's start with Michigan at 15-0. They won the national championship. Jim Harbaugh, J.J. McCarthy, and about 20 other players are gone. But I actually circled two pivotal games on their schedule. Of course, it's their second one and their last one. Texas comes to the Big House in week 2 with national championship aspirations, and they will provide immediate feedback as to whether there's a drop-off from last year's talent level for Michigan. Then, of course, they still have that last game against Ohio State, too. It's always important, and I'm never going to say it's not. But Texas, week 2, in the Big House, is the big one. And speaking of the Ohio State Buckeyes, like Oregon, I think the Buckeyes and Oregon are very similar this year. They both have Big Ten aspirations, and they both have national championship aspirations. Doesn't mean Michigan doesn't. Don't hit me with the hate mail. There's no bigger game on the schedule than Michigan, of course, with Ohio State, especially with Ryan Day's situation, having lost to the Wolverines 3 years in a row. But I will argue the most pivotal game on the schedule is the Oregon game. That's on the road. It's October 12th, right in the middle of the season. They win that, they can be home free. If they lose it, they're going to have some work to do. But again, those two teams, their goals and their abilities will be nearly the same. And the winner of that game gets a leg up on absolutely everything. I think it's the biggest game of the season in the Big Ten this year, not named Michigan versus Ohio State, for sure. All right, let's talk a little hoops, huh? How about the Fighting Illini? Good job, Illinois. Red hot. Very impressive. Make it to the Elite Eight. And they got Thursday night's win, 72-69 over 2-seed Iowa State in the Sweet 16. It's Illinois' first visit to the Elite Eight since 2005. Terrence Shannon Jr. continues to tear it up, scored 29 points, had 20 and a half. The only thing that cooled him off is he got into foul trouble, only played 29 minutes. 29 points in 29 minutes is pretty good. It's pretty good. And they never trailed in that game. So now Illinois, and their defense was pretty good. They held Iowa State to 39% shooting, forced 9 turnovers in that game. Up next now for the Fighting Illini, Saturday, a date with number 1 seed and defending national champion UConn. That's the big one. That's a big one. Now, nobody's won back-to-back national championships since Florida did it in the early 2000s. So is UConn, are they ripe? Are they ready to get knocked off? Is Illinois the team to do it? They might be. We'll have our picks here at the end of the podcast. And don't forget the number 1 seed Boilermakers in action tonight, Friday night, 7:39 Eastern time tip-off on TBS or True TV versus 5 seed Gonzaga. Boilers beat Gonzaga in the Maui Invitational earlier this year, but Gonzaga led that game by 5 at the half. So this could be a very interesting matchup. I think both teams have a legitimate chance at winning, and you got Mark Few versus Matt Painter trying to X and O against each other. Should be great. Also tonight, Friday night, the women are in action again. 4 seed Indiana, they got a tough one. Number 1 seed South Carolina, that is at 5 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN. And then tomorrow, Saturday, Caitlin Clark and number 1 seed Iowa taking on number 5 seed Colorado at 3:30 on ABC on Saturday. And Iowa feels like it's a team of destiny, but these teams are getting tougher and tougher to play. Caitlin Clark, we wish you the best of luck. We'll see how that goes. And I have some much needed good news for you Indiana Hoosier fans out there, and Coach Mike Woodson, who, look, they had a down year this year, and they had no recruits slated to come in for next year as of now. But Class of 24, 5-star player Bryson Tucker has committed to Indiana. And he's a 6'7" wing player, chose IU over Kansas and Michigan State. Now, you may ask, why is a 5-star still available in late March? What's going on? Well, he was a player that was probably going to skip college and go to the G League Ignite. But that folded 2 weeks ago. So now he reassessed the situation, and Mike Woodson got him to come to Indiana. He's a Maryland native and a McDonald's All-American. And, Woodson has a knack for some late last-second recruiting with some big names in the spring when you think everybody's already signed and not available. He's gotten guys like Tamar Bates, Malik Renew, and Mackenzie Mbako have all been late signs. So, hey, good job, Coach Woodson, on that deal. Hey, anytime we talk recruiting, it's always brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and that's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. All right. Hey, do you watch a lot of daytime sports TV, talking heads, talking over each other, screaming all the time on Fox and ESPN? You can turn down the volume and ignore them altogether. You can go to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the latest stories without all the screaming, all the nonsense. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, you know what we like to do in our final segment? We always like our picks. Got all the basketball games that are still left on the schedule. All those are coming up in just 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. Hang tight. This week's March Madness Bracket Highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest, just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs. These guys were able to take it to the next level, and that is the Purdue Boilermakers. They can be described as a pathfinder. They've been thrilling to watch, and they've really created a lane for themselves, and they won the Big Ten regular season. But now they're going to forge forward and try and get something done here in the NCAA tournament. So, you can think of Purdue when you're taking the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada to go out and find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. That's NissanUSA.com. All right, we always like to go ahead and do picks here at the end of our last show of the week. We're going to put them up on the screen, and if you're listening on audio only, we'll describe. We got 2 men's games and 2 women's games to look at here on the schedule. So let's put it on screen and get rid of that so you can see. Okay, full screen. Here we go. It comes down to this. Men's basketball. We'll start with them. And we got 5 seed Gonzaga taking on number 1 seed Purdue. The over-under 154.5 on this one. Even if Purdue wins, I don't know if they're winning by like 6 points or anything, 5.5. So I'll take Gonzaga because of the points. Purdue may still win, but I think it'll be closer than 5.5, 6 points. The over-under seems about right. I could see this being in the low 80s, high 70s. I think that I wouldn't mess with that number. I think that's right on it. Also, 3 seed Illinois taking on number 1 seed UConn. I definitely think that's too many points. Win or lose Illinois, they're not losing by like 9 or more. I like them to get inside that number. Much closer game. Much respect for both of these teams. I think Illinois can cause UConn some problems. I like the over, though, at 154.5. Both of these teams can score. Both of them can score. All right. Over in women's basketball, 4 seed Indiana, number 1 seed South Carolina. I think South Carolina is primed to win this game. They're undefeated, but not by 15.5. No way. It's going to be closer than that. The Lady Hoosiers are pretty good. A lot of scoring options. Indiana has a great inside game. Over under at 143.5. Vegas is telling you they think this is going to be a low defensive battle, and I think that is right on the money. I would even take the under on this one. It might be even a little more lower scoring than that. And then 5 seed Iowa taking on number one seed Iowa taking on number 5 seed Colorado. Iowa a 6.5 point favorite. Caitlin Clark. I think they win. I think they win by double digits. I like this number. Iowa covers. I don't know what to do with the over under. Normally I would go over 160.5. Colorado's defense is not as good as what the Hawkeyes faced the other night. Remember, Iowa, their last game, they scored 6 points in the second quarter, and they didn't score their first field goal until there's 2 minutes to go. Hopefully they can shake that off and score some points here and get this number on the over. But I wouldn't touch this one right now. I'm not sure. Although Colorado, you know what? I think Iowa's offense is back on track. Go over. Go over 160.5. So those are our picks for the weekend, and I hope you have fun with those. And that's it, man. I'm ready to sit down and watch a lot of great basketball here this weekend. What do you think? Any comments from today? Love to hear from you. You can hit us up, interact with me on Twitter or X at TalkBig1010. Don't forget our website, TalkBig10.com. In fact, let me put that on the screen as well. And there you go. I think hold on. Bear with me here. I got this right there. There we go. Talk Big 10, TalkBig10 10.com. We archive all of our podcasts there. You can either watch them chronologically or group them. We group them by schools. If you're a Michigan fan, you go to the Michigan site and click it right there. All the ones we've talked about Michigan. If you're a Fighting Illini fan, Purdue fan, they're all grouped by the schools. Plus, while you're there, you can get yourself some merch like I got from either the Big Ten or your favorite school. The pennants behind me, hats, all the cool stuff that you want, and some tickets. You want to go to a game? Go get the tickets right there. Everything's right there on our website, TalkBig10 10.com. And before anything else, be sure to subscribe. Click it. It's free. It helps us. Thank you very much. And don't forget to tell your friends about us. So subscribe and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app. And you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And watch a couple more over the holiday weekend. Locked On Big Ten. And don't forget our friends from Locked On over at Locked On Sports Today, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts. It's Locked On Sports Today as well. That will just about do it for us. If you celebrate Easter, have a wonderful holiday weekend. In fact, have a wonderful weekend no matter what. We really appreciate you guys. And we'll be back on Monday, more spring football, and hopefully we'll have a few Big Ten teams to talk about in their respective Final Fours. So we'll get to all of that right here on Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. Catch you next time.